Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay. Thanks for having you all in the latest session of this morning, but it's already a good afternoon, so we'll try to start as soon as possible. I'm happy to introduce the rest of the panel in a few seconds, but my name is Gilles Meijer. I'm one of the founders of Golden Egg Capital, and we call ourselves the most active small VC in the Netherlands. We did 24 deals so far. We do small ticket size, and we are a very hands-off investor, which is already something that differentiates us from the rest of the ecosystem. But let's start with a really short intro from the rest of my panel. Let's just start with you, Gabi, and then we go to the right order. Then we also have the ladies first, so
okay,
go ahead.
Great. Good afternoon, my name is Gabi Zijderveld. Even though I grew up in the Netherlands, I've been in the Boston, USA area for 30 years working in tech. Most recently I was at Affectiva, the emotion AI company that got started about 15 years ago, so kind of doing AI for the past decade before everyone else was. We exited the company, joined the company that acquired us for a little bit, and then earlier this year spun out and started a venture firm, Blue Tulip Ventures, investing in human-centric AI. AI that's good for you, good for the planet, and ethical.
Hello, my name is Cecily.
Cecily needs mic.
I need to be, there we go. Hi, my name is Cecily Mack, and I'm San Francisco based. I come to investing in this field after being an attorney for 20 plus years, an operator for about 10, and having worked a number of years in-house in mid and late stage startups, music publishing and crypto. Currently the co-founding general partner of Wisdom Ventures. We're currently deploying out of Fund 1. We've made 30 investments. About 20% are in AI specific companies, but we're seeing most of our pitches have some AI component these days. And we're focused on companies that are helping to advance human flourishing, well-being, mindfulness, human connection. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Axel. I'm based in Paris. I'm part of Alpha Intelligence Capital. We are a deep tech AI focused fund. We invest from pre-seed to Series B. We invest globally. 50% of our investments are in the US, 50% are rest of the world. And our team is based between Paris, San Francisco, and Singapore.
Sebastian, managing partner of KOMPAS. We are a specialist investment firm focused on the built environment and the manufacturing industry. We focus on productivity, decarbonization, and what we call resilience, so any form of risk management in supply chains, geopolitical risks, cybersecurity. We are a Series A fund. We typically write checks between 3 and 5 million euros. We invest in Europe and in the US. We have a nice footprint in Europe, not an active footprint in the US in terms of coverage, but we do invest opportunistically. And I'm very much looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you all. Let's start with the very generic question, the question of the, let's say, title of this panel. So maybe you can all elaborate a little bit on the fact, like, okay, what are you exactly looking for if you receive a business proposition from one of the founders in the audience? And maybe we can specifically focus on the AI part. And maybe we can stick a little bit with you, Sebastian, to kick it off, let's say.
Sure. So we are a specialist fund. We are really focused on industry applications and industry solutions. So typically I think about AI investing as in paradigm and out of paradigm. So there are technologies and technological shifts that take place that shift a paradigm, that shift the way we operate, right? So the shift to mobile, now what we see with artificial intelligence. We are not going to be the ones who write the first check in OpenAI. What we are focused on is the application layer, solving specific industry problems with proprietary data sets, with talent that understands the industry and is able to effectively carve out a defensible application that is really solving a big industry problem, such as forecasting supply chain disruptions and other things.
Okay. I'm now going a little bit towards the US investors, let's say. Do you have a different perspective on this? And maybe more specifically also the defensible part? How do you measure, how do you assess that from a VC perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, our fund in particular is unique in that we have a fairly focused strategy and focus in that we're really seeking founders who have a sufficient level of passion to make it through the difficulty of the founding journey. It's not terribly romantic or fun to launch and build a company, contrary to popular belief, as I know many in the room know. And so we really work closely with founders in the getting to know you process to make sure that they feel personally connected to the journey that they're about to embark on. That means that a lot of what we see here today is out of scope for us. We really want to hear the personal story. Why are you committing years of your life and your sanity, in some cases your own well-being, to build this? So it's a little bit of a unique perspective on our end.
Okay.
Yeah, I second everything the prior speakers have said, but from an AI perspective, right, I think these days every startup needs to be an AI startup, and for us what's not interesting is folks that grab an LLM and slap a wrapper around it and call it an AI solution. So looking at the technical defensibility, what is the competitive moat that you're building around your solution is super important. So we tend to dive really deep on the machine learning expertise and also what is being done around data. So are they building a strong data pipeline? Are they thinking through where they're acquiring their data from? If there's data annotation required or opportunities to generate synthetic data, how is that done? Is that in line with regulation that's here now, that's coming in the future? Also, the technical team, what is really their machine learning expertise? We have a lot of thoughts on this. We have a lot of experience in that space, so we also really like guiding startups where we see excellent opportunity, but we feel that maybe their competitive mode is a bit light. There's a lot of coaching we've done already to kind of help steer them in the direction to make it stronger. So for us, that's really important.
Okay. Interesting, because we also, as a co-investment fund, we always rely on the expertise of the lead investor. So it's also good to learn a little bit on how you assess that part, of course. And maybe also specifically to you, Axel, because your investments are 50% in Europe, 50%, let's say, outside of Europe. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit, like, do you see differences in how you do the assessment or trends or...
When it comes to AI, it was quite interesting to see most of the companies which were hot in the US, they were hot in Europe like 6 months later. So being in Europe and looking in the US, you could kind of anticipate like multi-agents. This was the thing like 1 year ago in the US, now it's becoming a hot thing in Europe. When it comes to the fundraising environment, and so this is more for the startups, I think there is something interesting about the US that Europe doesn't have yet, but we'll get to, is specialized investors. In Europe, we still have a lot of like very generalist people. In the US, you have cyber-focused, prop tech-focused, gaming-focused. And so this gets it, I think, easier for VC and founders to exchange, and so to quickly get to decisions, because the path to decision in the US is much faster than in Europe. Like I've been on deals which, overnight for like a 15 million round, and I've less seen this in Europe.
Okay. And is it just as simple like the size of the market, or why do you think that? Maybe you can also answer that, because you're also from the research.
There are too many VCs in the United States. It's part of the problem. So you need to specialize to have a niche and a focus, and frankly, it allows you to do better work. For example, we're very fluent in mental health applications and things to help people connect outside of their tech-fueled lives. And so we can meet with a dozen or so startups in that particular field within a month and feel very confident about our decisions, instead of having to get up to speed on a whole industry and the competitive marketplace and what data you need and privacy concerns and everything else. So it's a very classic American thing. It's like it enables efficiency in a way.
And that's actually, I think, a really interesting consideration, right? Because what drove us when we wanted to start our firm is, and we quickly rallied around our thesis of human-centric AI. And as an example, we look at the intersection of AI and health and wellness, productivity and learning, and sustainable living. But we quickly realized that under those umbrellas, we also have to stay within our domain expertise. I think the opportunity that AI, for example, offers in drug discovery is just magnificent and will have a humongous impact on humanity. But I don't have a biomedical background, nor does my founder. So for our Fund 1, do I see ourselves investing in that space? Probably not. There's others that have started funds that have that deep domain expertise, right? And the same in climate tech, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of that specialization. Sebastian, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the way the sort of tech ecosystem grew up here, right? If you look at the first generation of companies, I mean, European tech was mostly e-commerce, consumer focused stuff. So there wasn't actually a lot of deep tech. Most of the R&D and most of the inventions actually came out of the European industrial base. So, companies like Siemens, et cetera, and we don't really have a very, very strong legacy of innovations that arose in the university ecosystem or in the industrial setting to kind of, be spun out and grow into large companies. I think ASML is probably the one counterexample everyone in the Netherlands can name. But there's something about the structure of European industry, the structure of the European tech ecosystem that hasn't really been conducive to creating specialist investors akin to the ones you find, for example, in Silicon Valley, where, venture capital for a very, very long time has been an engine of innovation that isn't really the case in Europe.
Okay. We'll come back later about maybe specifically the Dutch market as well, because we were this morning also on the Dutch radio, so I also want to hear your perspective on that, but I'll park that question for now, because I was also interested, especially in you, Cecily and Gabi, because you were both in your profiles focusing a lot on well-being, on human-centric AI for good. And then also from the founder perspective, maybe you can elaborate a bit on that as well, because I don't see that here often in the Netherlands, that there is so much focus on the well-being part, but
yeah, it's multi-layered, and I really liked when we spoke, Cecily, what you were talking about as well. I think it's multi-layered. So first, when you think about the technology opportunity, right, for us, we're very thesis-driven, right? We believe that AI needs to be in service of humans, and it should be focused on helping us be happier, healthier, more productive, more knowledgeable. And as such, we focus on AI that augments human ability and makes us better humans in the age of AI, rather than AI that will wholesale replace us, right? So that's kind of where we are interested in directing our attention and where we're going to be investing. But also to what Cecily was talking about, and I'll let you elaborate on that more, I think also when you look at the organizations within, I think we've all, in tech especially, have been in this rat race of like, keep going, and there's come this general realization it's just not sustainable, and you need to focus on the wellness of the teams, of the founders, of the people who work for you, because that's what's going to create successful companies. And there's been plenty of studies on that, but please add some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, what I would add, and other great points, is I've been inside of companies, I've helped build companies that have fantastic technology, they're solving a really great problem with a killer solution, the market is ready, the pricing is right, but they screwed up the people part.
Yeah.
They didn't prioritize the well-being of the founding team. They didn't think about taking care of the people actually doing the building and the marketing and the designing and the communicating and the hosting. And so you have this enormous opportunity that you have an organization that's wrought with politics and toxicity from the inside out. It doesn't matter how killer your product is or how in demand it is in a market. And so I think, more than ever, I think that's really important as this space is emerging, because money is just flying into AI companies. What is an AI company? I mean, it's like saying an internet company of 2002.
Yeah.
Everything is already or will be in some way fueled by AI if you're in tech. So I think it's even more important to really be doubling down on the human piece than ever before.
But on the other hand, I think a lot of founders will now say like, yeah, but if I don't reach my targets, if I'm not on schedule with what I promised to my investors, they will try to challenge me more and more and more. So there is some sort of balance. Maybe you can also jump on that. Like, I like it, don't get me wrong, the human-centric also side of the founders and not screwing up your team, but it feels like it's a difficult balance to handle, right? Maybe you can also...
I think going back to what you were saying, I think for AI it's going to be extremely interesting because now we're seeing CEO who comes from the research world. So they come from a technical world. They've been used to working mostly alone. Like they're not used to like manage as like this first wave of entrepreneurs who worked in company, who worked in management, right? So seeing them as top managers is not a natural fit, I would say, for them. So I think indeed for VCs, us, we need to look more than ever, like, is this person a top AI researcher or is it a good CEO? And can he, because right now in AI, talent is a success, basically. Yeah. So can these people make those top talents stay within the company is extremely important.
Yeah, you can't outsource human connection, actually. You also can't delegate it to an AI, so.
Sebastian, I see that you also want to say something.
I think there's a really interesting sort of paradox here, right? When you look at our industry, the VC industry, we kind of expect founders to condense what most people will take a lifetime to accomplish to be really excellent managers into a few years. Very often when they are just at the beginning of their career or sort of approaching the middle of their career, and that is a tremendous challenge. And I think the only hack around this is to surround yourself with excellent people, to be extremely self-aware and to have the confidence to say there are certain things I'm just not very good at, but I hire the right people into my team to make up for that. I think the worst founders in a sense are those that don't have that self-awareness and that don't have the humility to recognize when the right time is to bring in that additional help. It's an extremely complex and challenging psychological journey. If you're starting something, I was a founder myself, if you're starting something, you see it grow and you see it become bigger than yourself. And you suddenly realize that you have a role to play, but there are lots of things that you simply don't understand and are not very good at. And if you don't have the, humility to recognize that, then very often founders run into trouble with consequences for their well-being.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just add one thing. In our firm, we actually prioritize and vet for self-awareness as much as we do all the other standard things that you would vet a company for. And then once we've invested in a company, we actually do everything we can to support the team in maintaining and developing their self-awareness. It's a little bit like DEI 15 years ago. All of a sudden, there was all this information that diverse teams were building more valuable companies, shocking. Well, it actually turns out the same is true for well-being focused and self-aware teams. You build more valuable companies. And so to the extent that we can encourage that, for us that means, we host half-day meditation retreats for research teams at mega AI companies, things like that, because we actually think that's sometimes more important than hitting the core sales metrics.
Yeah. Very interesting. I also want to stress the point that if you're a founder, you have to have different stages, and in different stages you need different skills and competences, and it's fine to support them with that. Since I'm the only investor that's actually focused on the Netherlands mainly, I'm also just curious about your perspective, because this morning there was the quarterly reports that we launch every quarter, and we only had 14 deals in the Netherlands focused on AI in a quarter. And for me, that feels really low, right? So without being too much of a cliche question, like what should we do differently if you compare it to the other regions? Where should we focus?
I think it's a tough one, and I think I can kind of look at this a little bit because I grew up in the Netherlands. I've lived here for a long time. I went to university here, but I've worked in the US for 30 years, and I think just when you talk, the Netherlands has certainly changed. It's become much more of an international culture. A lot of foreign students at universities that stay here and work here. So the workforce definitely got diversified over the days that I lived and worked here. But I still think there's something deeply rooted in Dutch culture, which is conservative. And doe maar normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg. There's these expressions, right? Just je kop niet boven het maaiveld uitsteken.
Yeah, so
like just if you're kind of average and don't be too provocative and just be normal, that's good enough, right? So I said, what I struggle with is I don't sense a lot of risk taking or crazy ideas. And then I am actually working and mentoring a number of Dutch AI companies, and they're having a horrendous time raising Dutch venture capital money. Because, they say they invest in pre-seed, but they want to see $1 million in ARR. Okay, really?
Yeah.
and they're less inclined to jump behind a vision and a great idea. Again, just very conservative in approach, and I honestly don't know how to break through that. But anyway, you will have thoughts on that maybe. So
I think Sebastian.
I call the Netherlands my home. It's a wonderful place to live. The cultural aspect is actually very interesting because, again, there's a big paradox here, right? I mean, the Netherlands, if there's a home in Europe of capitalism, it's the Netherlands, right? I mean, you look at Amsterdam, you look at, what the Golden Age did to that city, the risk that people were engaging in when going to trade in foreign countries and so on. So I think the cultural aspect, to be a really, thriving, very risk-prone society, that is actually here. What I find extremely striking is when I moved from London to, I now live in The Hague. For me, anything between Rotterdam, The Hague, Utrecht, and Eindhoven is one city, right? Anything that takes me to get from one place to the other in an hour is pretty much what Greater London is, right? So, but that's not how the Dutch think about themselves. They think in provinces, right?
Yeah.
And in small unities. And I think that sort of sense of reframing the Netherlands as this is a Silicon Valley, right? I mean, you look at Eindhoven, you look at places like Enschede and other places. I mean, there is a lot.
Innovation hub.
But no one ties it together. No one brings it together. The visibility into Dutch deal flow is extremely tricky because it's just so fragmented, right? And I think that's a big challenge.
Good point.
Thanks for bringing it up, because I already saw some people laughing in the audience as well, because I come from Enschede this morning, which for a lot of Dutch people will feel like, oh, that's the end of the world, Well, if you look at it from your perspective, it's not 1 hour, but it's, let's say, 2 hours, so that's interesting. Anyone else something on this? Because otherwise I slowly move to the
Actually,
audience.
fun fact, right? So the Randstad, which is basically that sort of area comprising Rotterdam to Amsterdam and Utrecht, has about 7.5, 7.6 million people. It's the second most prosperous economic region in Europe after Greater Paris. So there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't also be the second most generative, region when it comes to unicorns and startups. And there are some wonderful examples. There's Adyen, there are Booking.com. There are a range of Dutch success stories, but somehow the narrative is not, getting out there.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a dichotomy, right? Because historically, the Dutch have been a nation of builders and inventors and traders, right? So something.
We need.
And I think also, this morning's set of startup pitches was actually an example, I think, of an opportunity, which is that I'm sitting in the audience, I'm listening to these pitches, and they sound like really compelling and interesting companies, but unfortunately, more than half of them felt very geo-specific to me, even though these are global problems and global opportunities. And so to the extent that we can just zoom out a little bit and not think about, we're investing in a Dutch company solving a Dutch problem, but we're investing in a Dutch company solving a global problem, and start there instead of having to kind of make the shift and go bigger.
Yeah, it echoes a bit on the ambition part that you were also referring to, right, Gabi? So I think that's a very fair point. Looking at the time, I also want to give the audience the opportunity to ask some questions. So if you have any question to somebody specifically or in general, please go ahead. I'm not sure how it works with the mic, but I think somebody's already getting it. I think we have room for 2 or 3 questions, and then there we go. There it's coming.
Yeah, it's going to be a general question, maybe for who feels like answering to it. How do you look at startups that exist for a few years from the pre-LLM era? Do you see that as a legacy, as a disadvantage, or are they, on the contrary, maybe better positioned to take advantage of the LLM era?
Maybe you, Axel, because you're going from C to...
I would say it really depends on what technology you're trying to achieve. Have you been working on NLP before going for LLM? Or are you just like shifting because you saw the big market opportunity coming and just like do a 180 turn from what you were doing? In general, I don't think it is a negative side. Like, we will just try to understand what you've been doing and how you're going to try to leverage the research that you've been doing, let's say on NLP, to apply it to LLM. The whole idea is to see if you raise fundings before, like what did you do with this money and how efficient were you in building something? It's not a red flag per se, but it needs to be surrounded by explanations, basically.
Yeah. I would give a very similar answer, it depends. And there's some phenomenal success stories of companies that started doing one thing and shifted dramatically. Slack is my favorite example. It was like a gaming messaging app for years, and then it became Slack, as we know it today. So I think it really depends, exactly as you said, on how you leverage what you've done so far.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Be careful using the word pivot, because it's a tainted term, at least in Silicon Valley. It sort of means you failed and you're redirecting. I would think about it as evolving. You're taking what you've done and applying it to a next phase instead of a U-turn or something dramatic.
Yes, Sebastian.
I think there are some very clear examples where it's not a hindrance at all. When you think about advanced materials companies, for example, where AI enables material discovery, new formulations, propels research, that's much more evolutionary. It doesn't invalidate what the company is trying to accomplish. If you're, for example, developing low-carbon materials, it's much more of an enabler. So I think the question is really, are you in the business of building infrastructure for AI? Then being pre-LLM is probably a little bit difficult, right, if you're in that space. But if you're trying to do something when AI is an enabler, most likely, this will be a new kit in your toolbox, and it will, accelerate your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very good. And thanks for the question, by the way. There's room for one more, I guess. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Rupesh. I'm the founder of an AI company, Dialogue.ai. And we deal mainly into customer interaction space, where we have developed a product which helps the agent to do their job better. My question to you is, apart from money, what should we look into investors? What are the top 3 questions we as a startup should ask the investors before starting the journey?
I love this question.
Yeah, I do
Thank
too.
you for asking that. Startups don't ask that question of themselves enough. This is a two-way relationship.
Yeah.
It's like a marriage. It better be good. So I think making sure your values are aligned.
Yes.
Making sure that you understand how much the investor expects to be involved. You might want an investor very involved, available for product. You might want an investor just write a check and go away. What are your reporting requirements? Are you comfortable with them? Are they going to help you with your core initiatives and strategy? Are there certain customers that you're going to be able to reach through them? Are there certain other investors at a later stage that they're going to help pave the way to? Do they have any blips in their own integrity as a firm? Are you going to find out later about something terrible within their operations that casts a shadow on you? I would make it as, sensitive to leverage. You don't want to be too aggressive until you have a good positioning, but I would make it a two-way conversation as much as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I would highly recommend anyone looking for investor funding to do a background reference check on the VC. Find out who they've invested in, talk to them, what it's really like. But I think making sure it aligns with your values is key, because not all money is good money, right? And it can go horribly wrong. So be critical. It's a two-way street, right?
Yeah, and are they going to invest in a competitor? Really important question. Would you ever invest in a competitor? That yes or no, you may end up actually holding them to later.
So you should indeed do your homework as well, right? So just do the background checks and stuff like that. Because I like the fact that you're going to marry with each other, but you're also going to break up at some point because you want to make the exit. And I think these 2 points are very important to realize before you start working together, right? And that's something that you can check. Maybe one final question, if that's... if there is a question, otherwise we move to my final question, let's say. Maybe in the back there, yes.
Hi, my name is Abhishek and I'm a high school entrepreneur. Thank you. So the question that I would like to ask is, what are the tips that you can give to navigating this industry, or just like the AI industry, for someone who doesn't have so much work experience or corporate experience?
Want to start on that end?
Can we take this as the final question? Because it was more or less also my question, like what kind of advice would you give to either first-time founders or to people?
So I think you are immensely privileged in the sense that you have access to information that when I graduated from high school, I didn't have. You know, there was not anything close. You know, my sort of, I guess, guiding star was, you know, whatever else my friends were doing, you know, what I might have picked up in newspapers, some trade publications, but it was literally paper. You know, we are talking 1995, you could Google some stuff, but at the end of the day, there were no blogs, there were no podcasts, you know, there were no conferences like this to really take note of. So the fact that you are here, that you have all of these people around you, that you have access to all that information, that is your most important asset. Not being, if you like, schooled in the art of navigating a corporate, in many, many settings, that is actually an advantage, not a disadvantage. Right? Not always, but I definitely wouldn't hold that against you depending on what you're doing.
I think that for founders, one advice I would give is try to find like a mentor, like a VC mentor. It can be someone quite young, like analyst or associates. It's not here like to help you to build a company, because let's not overestimate what we can do, but just like to be honest with you, not in a full pitch way, but tell you the basic mistakes that you can do when you fundraise. Because there are a few codes that VCs have and founders don't necessarily have them. So just in a really like gentle way, it's not about investing, but it's just like about a one-on-one conversation. And reaching out on LinkedIn to, I think, junior people, like a lot of them would actually accept this.
Right.
I'm going to embarrass my kid. I'm sorry. My 13-year-old son is to your left down there, and I love that you're young and in high school and doing this, and I think you'll find a lot of support along your journey as well, because like us, we kind of wish we had the resources that you evidently do at your age. I have some unusual advice, and it would be to be really comfortable with saying, I don't know. I think it's very common as a kid, and especially when you're doing something, you feel a little big for your britches, you're maybe out of your lane, to fake it and wing it a lot. You actually don't know a lot, and you're going to build trust when people ask you questions, and you can just honestly say, I don't know, but I'm going to go find the answer, and I'll come back to you. I learned that painfully in my 30s, and it was awful. I wish I learned it at your age, so congrats.
Yeah. My advice for an entrepreneurial high school student, awesome that you're here, or a founder for that matter, is expand your network, right? Make connections with folks that A, believe in you, or that you feel can support you. And like you said, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, I need help, I need to ask questions, and just go out there. But the sooner you start building out your network, the more valuable that's going to be on your entrepreneurial journey. So start today. This is a great place to do it.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks for your great question. I think as a short summary, I think there are a lot of opportunities for founders, first-time founders, to make use of the knowledge that is out there, but also the people that can help you with that. I learned a lot today. You made my life as moderator easy, as we also said in the first call that we had, because you can share great stories. I think especially for Dutch/European founders, it's good to have that ambition from the start to go globally and to have these crazy ideas and make use of all the opportunities that are out there. Feel free to reach out to all of us. We all have LinkedIn. We are human beings, and as VCs, we also have to work on our deal flow funnel. So even if you think too early, just try to reach out and see what we can do for you. Thank you all, panel members. It was a pleasure, and thank you, audience, for being here and for your questions. So,